well, to live well means to respect the other life forms and the lives that have been given to my existence, to thank the plants and the animals that are on my plate, essentially every meal, the water in my glass, the wood that makes my desk, for example. All these things are gifts from Mother Earth, nature's gift economy, and to realize that I'm just one little member of that community who should be here giving and taking what I need with respect and not greed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick Rodell. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is Darcia Narvaez. Darcia is Professor Emerita of Psychology at the University of Notre Dame. Born in Minnesota, she grew up living around the world as a bilingual, bicultural Puerto Rican, German American, but calls Earth her home. Her earlier careers included professional musician, business owner, classroom music teacher, classroom Spanish teacher, and seminarian, among other endeavors. She uses an interdisciplinary approach to studying evolved morality, child development, and human flourishing. Her most recent books include Restoring the Kinship Worldview, The Evolved Nest, Nature's Way of Raising Children and Creating Connected Communities. Her book, Neurobiology and the Development of Human Morality, Evolution, Culture, and Wisdom, won the 2015 William James Book Award from the American Psychological Association and the 2017 Expanded Reason Award. Her recent short films are Breaking the Cycle, The Evolved Nest, and Reimagining Humanity. She hosts the webpage evolvednest.org and serves as president of kindredworld.org. Hi, Darcia. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to be with you, Broderick.
Nice to be with you as well. I am so excited to have this conversation with you. Just reading off that bio again and seeing the work that you've done in the world, the work that you're doing with children, just thinking, reimagining, thinking how we as human beings can better relate to each other in the earth. And it's very exciting to have this conversation with you. I like to, even though I read that bio, I really like for guests to share their own personal take on themselves. So how do you typically like to describe yourself, or how would you like to describe yourself in this moment?
Well, my mother called me Hunter. She never knew why she called me that. So consider myself a seeker of truth, a seeker of beauty, a seeker of goodness and the flourishing. And my pathway through all these careers was, doing one or the other, and now all of them. The Evolved Nest is about all that. Also a seeker of, well, truth everywhere. And, it's the truth about who we are and how to flourish is really a transdisciplinary thing. So it's pulling together findings from multiple areas and realizing, aha, that's what happened. That's why we're screwed up. And finding a pathway out of that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. I like how you describe yourself as a seeker, and all of these interests that you've had, you've been able to bring together professionally. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
I also like that integrated approach. I think it requires that, and that speaks to this podcast. Interviewing people from different perspectives, different walks of life, and seeing how they see things, and seeing how they see, in particular, their view of what is the good, or what does living well look like from their personal perspective. So it's integrating all these different perspectives and seeing if we can. I know myself, being the person who is interviewing you all, seeing it, what can I glean and what can I learn from all these various perspectives. So what is I like to ask from the beginning, and we'll just unpack it for the rest of the conversation. What does living well mean to you? What is the good life? What does that mean to you?
Well, taken from the perspective of being a member of the Earth community, it means helping life on Earth flourish. And that means every life, essentially. A reverence for life, Albert Schweitzer's term. And knowing that I'm like a spider on a web with so many linkages to every other entity on the planet, and everything I do is reverberating across that web, affecting them, even though I don't see it. Maybe the consequences not for years, but it's all part of the wholeness that we are involved in, that we live in. And to remember that, and to remember then that it's my actions, but also the manner of my actions. So, excuse me, to be, um, well, to live well means to respect the other life forms and the lives that have been given to my existence, to thank the plants and the animals that are on my plate, essentially, every meal, the water in my glass, the wood that makes my desk, for example. All these things are gifts from Mother Earth, nature's gift economy, and to realize that I'm just one little member of that community who should be here giving and taking what I need with respect and not greed, but to live in a way that's aware that we're in this together and we flourish or the opposite together, keeping me humble to my responsibilities, I guess, and to do it in a way that's caring, to learn compassion. What does it mean to be compassionate with this animal, with this plant, with this person, and to always be growing in awareness and know-how of respectful behavior.
Awesome. I love all of it. I think that it's yeah, that's so important to acknowledge that we are all expressions of this earth in some capacity. We are all integrated. Every decision that we make, every choice that we make, every action that we take, there are implications, and those implications are felt. So, how do we show up? Can we be a little more aware, a little more sensitive, a little more compassionate and kind? Love it. Really beautiful. Let's
we
unpack. Go ahead.
Yeah, we are vibratory matter, right? Our
Mm-hmm.
vibrations are being sent out to the whole planet to some
Mm-hmm.
degree. And so it matters what we're feeling, what we're thinking, as well as how we're acting, right? So if you're angry, that's a certain energy you're sending out. Or if
Mm-hmm.
you're scared, you're sending out that energy, and people reverberate and get caught up in those energies, right? So it's my responsibility to try to be calm, to be in the heart space of openness and flow, of care and concern and compassion for others, and not get caught in my ego, or my old history, my woundedness, or my fears about the future. To be present now in my body here, and to honor all the life around me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's an ongoing endeavor because we're taught to, start worrying about the future, to worry about the past, and to, check things off our big long lists of to-dos, and so we're not present, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes practice and attentiveness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like you're speaking of, we're all exemplars. Either if we know it or not, we're all models. And so, what are we exemplifying in the world through our actions, behaviors, thoughts, what emotions that we shine, I guess, illuminate. So we have this responsibility because inevitably again, whatever's going on inside of us is going to translate into something. It's like we're all blown into the field of earth that's field. And in this field, this vibratory field, it's inescapable that we're going to have an impact. There are implications of how we show up. That's just beautiful. Yeah.
And it's an intergenerational
Mm-hmm.
endeavor, because the way my emotion systems are set up are from my early experience. So
Mm-hmm.
if I had caregivers who were distant, absent, harsh, I'm going to be more easily triggered into anger or fear than if I had loving, what we call the evolved nest, which is our species' normal way of raising children. Um, in that condition, the species' normal way, I would be easily able to flow and connect with others and be in that compassionate state of being. But what we've done, of course, today is we've undermined early childhood, and we have a lot of angry, scared people now in adulthood.
Yeah, I think we're still suffering from, was it Watsonian or Skinnerian behavioral psychology?
That's right, behaviorism. Yeah, still out there in the parenting world.
Exactly. I mean, it probably stems from even before that, prior to that. And I think if I get into that, people might get upset. But,
Yeah,
we think about the grand narrative that we all carry, and that narrative comes from thousands of years ago that has informed Western civilization. Not just Western civilization, actually. It's pretty globally, it's everywhere. But how we don't we it's like something happened in human history where we separated ourselves. In our story about ourselves, we separated ourselves from this earth, from nature. It's like, well, no, we're a part of it, we're an expression of it, and we separate ourselves from nature, and we look at each other as distinctions, as distinct entities out there, separate, away from me. We have concepts of God and all these other things, these mythic tales that we tell ourselves that are separated from who we are, and out there telling us how to live, what to do, some at these abstract concepts. It's like, hold on for a minute, we're grounded, we're all here, we're all an expression of the same thing. And of course, it makes sense that we're going to raise children that way. We're going to do a lot of things that seems, just closer observations, kind of crazy. The things that we do and how we raise children and all these different things. So you're
yeah,
onto something.
yeah. It's been a while, like you say, since the separation of humanity from Earth, and denigrating nature and denigrating humanity. Even it's been a few thousand years. Yeah. So um, I was thinking of a quote. What was it? Oh, yes. The Native Americans said, these Europeans, what they did is they took God out from outside and put him inside four walls, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what civilization did to humanity. We started living not out in a nomadic foraging context, which is 99% of our history was
Mm-hmm.
as nomadic foragers in a particular landscape, not anywhere, but you get very familiar with the 1,000-mile radius or whatever of plants and animals, and live cooperatively with them, or else you wouldn't survive. But when civilization came about, agriculture, monoagriculture, then humans started to withdraw from the natural world, started to control animals and plants, enslave them, some people say, and then just lost their know-how for getting along, and lost their sense of partnership, of personhood, of all those other creatures, right? That you see, though, in the still the hunter-gatherers that exist today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've lost that flow, like you said earlier. We've disconnected from the flow, and that's hard. That's hard to win back. Excuse me. I think that'll take generations, and I think the work that you're doing, having these types of conversations, is to try to get us to rethink how we are seeing ourselves in the world, how we see the world, the narrative that we carry. I think that's one of the another reason why I'm doing this is I think the story that we tell is so important. I mean, the story is guiding us, and we've been programmed over time through our parents, their grandparents, and the historical context of them, et cetera, et cetera. And the story that we inhabit, we don't even fully comprehend it. We don't even fully understand it or know it. We don't know where it came from. We think it's what it is. This is the way it should be. It's like fish swimming in the water, and the water is dominate nature. We're separated. We're isolated. There's a power out there that's telling us what to do, how to do, what our ethics and our morals should be, versus being in the flow with what's happening moment to moment in the natural world and seeing the responsiveness of nature, including other people, animals, etc., plants, the responsiveness of nature to our actions, the ethics, the morals, it's right there in front of us. But we're so distant away from it because most of us can't see it. We don't see it that way. I feel like it's gonna take generations to shift this narrative away from domination of Earth, competition as the in and of itself, versus competition as a cooperative end, if that makes any sense. I guess I'm talking about a positive sum,
Yeah.
positive sum game here. So yeah, these are, yeah, you're these ideas, this story that you are articulating that are bringing to surface is things that I think about quite often, a lot, and that has influenced me trying to hold a space for these types of conversations, because I think it's directly related to what we see as good, how we flourish or live well together.
Mm-hmm.
So good stuff, Darcia.
And it all starts in babyhood, right? Or even
Mm-hmm.
in fetalhood initially, and how the
Mm-hmm.
biochemistry of the mother is. If she's socially stressed, then the chemistry is going to create a stressed brain in the baby. And then birth practices, if they're not soothing, which they're supposed to be, are going to then traumatize mother and baby in some fashion. And that's carried in the bodies, both of them, and they might undermine their bonding, which is ready under natural conditions right after birth. They just want to forever just be magnetically connected. And a lot of medicalized birth interferes with that. And so uh, that ecstasy of birth that is under normal circumstance, natural circumstances, doesn't happen, and the baby's stress hormones don't ever get released, which skin to skin contact would do with the mother, and then they're forever for weeks crying, sleeping and crying because they're trying to get rid. They don't have the liver capacity to get rid of those hormones. It takes a very long time. So we kind of set babies up and people up to be failures at being human from all
Yeah.
these interferences. So, and then the rest of the nest is there to buffer any kind of genetics you have or any kind of occasional trauma you might experience, or distress. But the evolved nest is always there, so you feel connected. You're always connected. And so you never have that feeling of isolation and separation and objectifying other people as objects. It just doesn't happen when you're in the nested community. You're in the flow of being with others, enjoying them, enhancing their well being, they enhance yours. Babies
Darcia.
are never put down. They're carried no matter how many other things people are carrying. Babies are there in the arms or on the back,
Mm-hmm.
and it's amazing. Wow, really? Yeah, now we have the neuroscience to show how important all the nest components are.
That's right. Darcia, you're woo woo. That's extreme. Like, isn't that interesting that someone would say that?
I know.
They would say that's extreme. I'm like, well, actually, the way we're living is normalized. That is extreme. Like, seriously? Like,
Mhm.
we know that this stuff should not be happening. A lot of times it's in academic journals, and only a handful of people are reading it. And sometimes the people who are actually reading it are doing the very thing that we know that we probably should not be doing in terms of human flourishing. I guess should is an ought is a complicated set of two
Mhm.
words here, but for simplicity's sake, folks, I'm just going to use should sometimes. But we, in terms of relative to this idea of flourishing, what you're saying makes complete sense. But our current narrative has such a strong hold on us. It's so normalized that we look at what you're saying. When I say we, I'm talking about in general. We look at what you're saying is like, this is strange. Why would you do that? The doctors know what they are supposed to do. Why would they do that if it wasn't right? And so we rationalize it. We use reason to justify, I'll just use the word craziness. Um, and when we're raising kids, or just, yeah, you're right, from the very beginning, from the birth process. So strange. And then we wonder why we have so many problems in the world.
Yep.
But we'll look at someone like you. That's too much, Darcia. That's woo woo. That's extreme. But
Romantic.
it's romantic, yes. I'm like, really? That's why I was saying, this could take generations. I used to think that, someone like yourself offering up these ideas and you're using reason and it makes sense, it's reasonable, there's science to support it. No. I used to think that people are like, oh, okay, then that makes sense. So we should change. No. I had, yeah, for years. And just, in the last 4 or 5 years, I'm like, oh, wow, I think I've been naive in thinking that if you logically make a claim or state it, even if it's not perfect philosophical logic, but it's you're really setting it out there, critically looking at it, and you would think people would look at something like this that you're doing that's apolitical, has nothing to do with politics or anything. It's just basic ideas, concepts around how we bring a life into the world and the implications of that. And that's strange to our contemporary intelligentsia, even. So it's just,
Right.
yeah, it's weird.
Well, we're caught up in the left brain worldview, right? That's have
Mhm.
you read Ian McGilchrist's The Master and His Emissary, and how the Western civilization has been taken over by the left hemisphere, which is all about objectifying and distancing and controlling, and never, in the flow of life. It doesn't know the flow of life. And what happens when you under care for children, you don't provide the evolved nest, is they don't grow the right hemisphere, which is all about life and connection and flexibility and awareness and empathy, and all that gets undermined because the left brain decides, no, babies don't need to be touched. Babies don't need, can cry. Oh, don't spoil the baby. You're gonna, if you pick them up, all these insane notions from a human species normal view, indigenous perspective. So, yeah, left brain is really killing us now, and it's hard for the adults to get out of it unless they have some enlightenment revelation, like taking mushrooms or something,
Yeah,
or some significant impact on their worldview. Um, they can't understand it.
you're right. And I think Ian definitely speaks clearly about this because, how we attend to the world with in making such distinctions and how the left side of our brain, for instance, creates these distinctions and use logic and reason to support these distinctions, even if it's fictitious, even if it knows that it's fictitious. But that right hemisphere is, people, we're not talking about pop psychology, right and left hemisphere, folks. It's a much more sophisticated way of looking at it. Check out Ian McGill and you'll see. Just all over YouTube, he's been articulating this. At any rate, when we look at the right right hemisphere way of attending the world, it is using logic and reason as well, but it's taking a very complex view. It's looking for flow. It's looking how everything is interconnected and intertwined. Um, and It's saying, well, hold on for a minute. Let's take into consideration the complexity of each moment of our experience, and it can hold it all. And what a very useful and important role of making distinctions uh, is important, but is excessively used in our culture, and we think that that's it. This is the way the world should be, and we create laws and structures to support that way of thinking, and think that that's it. This is it. This is how it should be. This is how it is. And it's like, no, we're not including the whole. We're only looking at the part, and a very narrow way of looking at the part. And here we go. Look at all these problems and issues that we have.
Yeah, Native Americans noted that the Europeans that came over was like, oh, they only see with one eye.
That's yeah, that's so good.
They're just about their one way, and they can't perceive, the uniqueness of the moment and how it, the nuances and they just generalize or just impose, right? Conquistador. That's unfortunately I have a conquistador in my family line. So I know what that's like to be a conquistador. And my husband too, I've persuaded him not to mow our lawn until June, right? Because the insects are still coming out. At least last year that worked, but this year it's all coming early spring. And so we have signed no mow May. And I told him, when he's protested, oh, I got to go out there and do it. What will the neighbors think? And I said, you've got to get out of your conquistador mind and get into your partnership mindset, right? Be a partner with the insects and the plants, right? The pollinators. They need more time.
That's beautiful, Darcia. That's so beautiful. I think we're going on about these different these ideas, and how we've come to these ideas, and how these ideas influence or impact our choices ultimately. I'm very curious, and about where did this come from? How did you get into these ideas? What were some of your influences or inspirations, etc.? How did you get here?
Well, my earliest memories are about children in unjustly treated. My dad had a temper and kind of took it out on my brother when I complained. He took one of my toys when I was like 3, and I didn't want him to beat up my brother. I wanted my toy, right? And so it was like, oh. And then we lived. Half my childhood was in other countries, Spanish-speaking countries, and I saw kids my age, on the street corners selling gum and rags, barefoot, and so on. And I thought something's wrong with the world, because we'd come back 1 year abroad, 2 years in the States, and see the differences and all the overabundance of the materialism in the States. And so it always haunted me, and I cried for those children. It was kind of a superficial understanding of injustice. But now it's like humongously complicated injustice against babies. Now it's just so horrendous, and adults don't know what they're doing. And so it took me a while to get to studying moral development, which is what I did my PhD in. Before that, I had all those other careers because I have a lot of interests, and I was looking for, developing different talents. I was a music major in college, for example, and pipe organ, and was a church organist then, and just sort of follow. I think it's good for 20-year-olds to just explore and do a lot of different things, because you're building all sorts of know-how. Your right hemisphere is building know-how from immersed experiences, and then the left brain takes that information and generalizes, right? If you don't have enough experiences over there, when a lot of people don't seem to have very many anymore, if they're just sitting in front of a screen as a child, for example, and not playing, running around playing outside and with a lot of different aged people and animals and plants, then you don't have a lot to draw on. That left hemisphere then looks somewhere where, well, what am I going to do? Well, then they find an ideology. This is what I talk about, right? Well, you're going to find something that makes you feel safe, because in early life, if you're not nested, not provided the evolved nest, your survival systems you're born with are going to be enhanced because you cry and nobody comes. Well, so you practice being mad, and then if nobody comes, you panic, you are afraid, you go into dissociation. All this stuff you're practicing as part of your personality you're carrying forward. And then you're going to use those survival systems to guide your selection of what's attractive to your left hemisphere. What ideology should I pick? Oh, uh, right-wing supremacy. Oh, white male supremacy. All that whatever that we have going on in the states is about domination, because that's what the primitive systems know. It's a primate set of systems, not human. We evolved away from chimpanzee domination and hierarchy with cooperative child raising. It built a big social brain, and that social brain allows us to mind read, to share into adulthood, to be generous, to be so social compared to chimpanzees. We are different, but that's not what you hear in the culture. The cultural story is, just chimps, and it's dog eat dog world, chimp eat chimp world. And you just have to get out there and fight. Because it's that competition again that you mentioned. Yeah, it's crazy. That's just not the human way. It's just been recent. 1%, just a small percentage of 1% of our existence on the planet has been in this way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. When it's so funny when people say, we're chimps. And I'm like, well, hold on for a minute. The chimp doesn't have the capacity to reason like we do and build civilization like we do. So we're obviously not chimps. There's nothing wrong with a chimp, and there's nothing wrong with that being a part of our evolutionary history. Of course not. It's just that we have a responsibility as a member of the life with our capacity, reasoning capacity, for instance, our capacity to build narrative and translate those narratives into material manifestations. We have a responsibility. You would think that we will continue to grow and develop and educate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that we would integrate our past and also throw out the bathwater, keep the baby. You would think, but we'll come up with anything to justify aberrant behavior. We'll do anything to justify our distinction between the distinctions that we have, that we created, that separate us. And I don't know, it's so strange to me. When I hear you speaking, it's so clear. It's so clear the way that you are articulating this. This is great. So, I know you've been saying what the evolved nest is. Can you, because it's so important to your view of what is good, can you break it down for us? Yeah, I'm sure this audience is pretty broad, so can you break it down? What is the evolved nest, and how is it directly related to your view of the good?
Right. So the evolved nest is a set of ecological circumstances and cultural practices that we inherit from our ancestors. We inherit genes, but we also inherit a lot of other things like self-organization and culture and such. And the evolved nest is one of those things. And what we've done in my lab is identified 9 components that we can study. There's probably more that could be identified. The first 2 are just for babies, essentially, and all the rest are for all of us. So the nest grows our humanity and maintains it. So the first one is soothing perinatal experiences, as I mentioned, a gestation, a pregnancy that's calm and welcoming and loving for that child. So the biochemistry is growing a very healthy brain and body. Birth that's soothing as well. So that's part of it. So that's not inducing toxic stress to mother and child, as I mentioned earlier. and not separating them after birth, for example, not doing circumcision, for example. There's other ways to welcome children, babies. And then breastfeeding is the second one. And that's, this is magic elixir. It's 80% alive. It's tailored to that child at that moment when you're breastfeeding, for boy versus girl, for example, for gender differences, for morning milk is different from night milk. If there's an infectious agent in the area, there's going to be an antibody the breast produces for that child. It shapes the jaw. And we can see in skulls now comparisons from industrialization, and then even way back from when agriculture, monoagriculture happened, hierarchical civilization, we could see jaws changing. So we used to have a much bigger head, and then since civilization, the skulls have shrunk, and then you can see the jaws shrinking in the last hundreds of years because mothers went into the factories and didn't breastfeed as long. And so what happens is the jaws, for all of us virtually, unless you've had breastfeeding for at least 2 years, probably, I don't know if they've done the exact science on that, but the jaws are so narrow now. People have orthodontic problems. They have sleep problems because the tongues are too big for these little mouths that people have. And so we have all these disorders of various kinds. So there's an epidemic there. Anyway, that's number 2. Number 3 is a welcoming social climate. So mother feels supported, the child feels supported, like they belong, they matter in this group of multiple adult caregivers and other caregivers. So you're not just mom is not the only one caring for you, or mom and dad. It's a village, right? And then that village is responsive, keeping you optimally aroused as a baby. So that's 0 to 3 or 4. Boys need more nurturing in the nest for longer because they mature more slowly. They have less built-in resilience. So you want to have at least 3 years. Boys will seem more needy if you had a girl first. It's like, what's wrong with this boy clinging to me? Well, they are less mature and they need more support. And in patriarchal societies of our kind, anyway, they get less. So then we have all these males who grow up who never feel secure and are stuck in those dominator patterns because that's what you're born with, and you didn't build the skills, the social skills, to be egalitarian, which is our heritage as well, which takes a while after birth to grow. So then there's self-directed play, and that means not organized sports. That means children running around doing whatever they want out in the natural world, hopefully with multiple age playmates, and they should be spending their whole childhoods doing that. They're building their right hemisphere know-how for getting along in the world, and with a lot of flexibility. You have to learn how to not be too aggressive with your playmate, or the playmate will stop playing with you. Right? And so you learn to control those urges. You learn how to stop and start action. You learn how to react to an unexpected event of your playmate, and so on. And then there's affectionate touch. I think I didn't mention it recently. I mentioned it earlier, but affectionate touch means the baby's pretty much carried 24/7 till around age 3 or 4. And it's up to them, and they co-sleep, co-bed share. I mean, it's 24/7. And of course, you have to let them crawl and walk and do their motor development stuff too. And no negative touch, no spanking, no slapping, pinching, and so on, because that shifts the trajectory of development, takes the child away from following that inner compass of growth-oriented, spirit-unfolding life way. And if you punish them or you neglect them and leave them alone, you're now shifting them away from honoring that inner compass, and you're now directing their attention outside. Tell me what to do. And you're building unconfidence and a lack of trust in self, and probably a lack of trust in the relationships if you didn't come when they needed you, and a lack of trust in the world. It's a scary place. And 2 more. One is nature immersion and connection, so that you feel connected to Earth where you are. The landscape where you are, where you're born, is part of who you are. You grow with the animals and plants there and respect them. And the last one is routine or regular healing practices, We as human beings make choices, and we often get messed up, out of balance. Our health, our mental health, physical health, our relational health, our connection to nature, all that has to be rebalanced over and over and over regularly. So that's the nest. Soothing perinatal experience, breastfeeding, positive touch, multiple adult caregivers who are responsive to the needs of the child, self-directed play, nature immersion and connection, routine healing practices, and then a welcoming social climate, which is part of it all.
That's just beautiful. Folks, go. There's a book there that can unpack this even more. That was eloquently said there. I love that it's so sophisticated. There's a lot of complexity there, integrating all these different pieces to help get the child on this path. Can you say that again? What that looks like? What is this? What path does this put the child on? What is the trajectory now, and how does that living well?
Yeah, so I call it now a wellness promoting pathway. We can also call it the cycle of cooperative companionship, which is in what we say in one of the films, the Breaking the Cycle film. It is so evolvenest.org, lots of information there. The films are there, the podcasts and videos and essays and stuff. And then the path we're on now is the trauma-inducing pathway, or we can call it the cycle of competitive detachment. And that's just been, just a few civilizations have followed that terrible path that we're on. But we have, created structures and impeded nurturing parenting so much that we think it's the only way. People have an easier time envisioning the end of the world, for example, than the end of capitalism. And capitalism is part of the problem, at least the way it's practiced in the United States.
And so in order for us to flourish, we need to create that evolved nest and diligently put some energy towards it. Personally,
Yes.
in our local communities, also, well, that'll be a big thing. You get politically get that movement going, but that would be great.
We have tools at evolvenest.org. So we have a child care checklist for parents who want to see how well a child care center matches up with the Evolve Nest pieces. We have 28 days of self-calming. If you get easily triggered, for example, then you can practice every day a few minutes to calm yourself, try all these different things. We have 28 days of nature connection or eco-attachment. That's based on an experiment I did with college students that where you can just nudge yourself back into your body right now, pay attention, what you see, connect to the clouds, connect to the trees, whatever. So there's 28 days of that. And we have other 28 days aspects trying to help people get back into nestedness. We have a curriculum, self-directed Evolve Nest curriculum, which has links to podcasts and videos and various things, and then has a self-nesting assessment. How did you do today? Did you get enough touch? If not, okay, maybe this might help or whatever. So we're trying to get people back into being their full humanity by healing their primal wounds and nurturing their spirits, really.
This is just good stuff. This is really good. Darcia, this is beautiful. So I look at your life, the little that you shared and the challenges that you saw as a youth and the relationship between primarily, or at least from what you've shared, between your father and your brother, just seeing that and seeing the contrast of living in different countries, seeing children selling trinkets on the streets just to survive and coming here and seeing the waste, the excessiveness. And then there's something, so I mean, I'm bringing that up to suggest that sometimes what puts us on this path of trying to make the world a better place is the pain that we see, the suffering that we experience. So that's one piece of it that drives us. And sometimes we have to look at our pain to inspire us to shift and change.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes a person won't even listen to what you just shared unless they've experienced some type of pain, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the fish in the water. And you get the fish get taken out of that water for a short minute. They are more likely to rethink and recognize, like, hold on for a minute, this is different. This is painful. What can I do? It helps you. It can help us see things with a little bit more clarity. But another piece that you also shared that you is something that's always been in you. This connection is draw towards children, and I think so. For living well, for living a good life, there's a purpose that we all have. There's something that we're drawn to, and figuring out what it is that we're drawn to is so important. So it's not just, okay, I've had painful experiences in my life, and now since I've had painful experiences, let me go and rethink about how I'm doing things. Okay, that's one piece of the puzzle. But another piece of the puzzle is, what is my vocation? What compels me? What moves me? And for you, it was related to children. And I think, and I'm bringing this up because of this evolvedness that you just unpacked. Um, the environment that you're speaking of creating can help a person find out, quote unquote, their purpose, what drives them, their vocation, what motivates them, what moves them, and then being able to translate that into, again, what the evolvedness helps encourage and create, this sense of flow and connectedness. So you find your purpose within the context of being nurtured in an environment that inspires wholeness and connection with other things. That's just beautiful. I think all of these different pieces are important to consider when we are thinking about how do we orient our lives towards the good or towards well-being, etc.
One of the things that Native American groups traditionally did was uh, encourage the young to have vision quests. So
Mm-hmm.
this was something that was they only would encourage it if they felt like the young person was ready for it. But it's where you do stress the child's going to be, or the adolescent is going to be on their own for a few days without maybe food or water, depending on the practice, and then trying to have a connection to spirit, to their purpose, their universal cosmic uh, kind of insight into who they are and what their future holds. And that's something we've been missing for adolescents. And so they look for some way to feel connected and important. And I mean, they have this sense that they have a purpose, but they don't know what it is, and so they can get caught up in rabbit holes of various violent groups or hate groups and such. So it's really important that we honor the need of the young to feel um, their way to their purpose with some stressful conditions. I mean, they need to have some, so it's not all peaches and cream. So peaches and cream for babies 0 to 4.
Yeah.
And then, they're kind of on their own. They're part of the community. And then when they're in their adolescent or preteen, depending on the person, they need to be pushed into something that challenges them, that's actually going to get them connected to the reliant on the universe. There's one practice, this I can't remember which group it is, but what they do is they bury in the ground with the head showing the young person for several days, and they yell at them and insult them in various ways, and the child, of course, has to eliminate into the earth their urine and their poop for days. I guess they must feed them somehow. Um, and then afterwards, though, when that's done, they bring them out and they're so loving to that child. And the whole purpose here was to make sure they're strong enough to stand against bullying, to stand against things that get in their way, so that they're going to, to strengthen them. And I think we need to do a lot more of that for our adolescents.
Yeah.
Not
And
that
you're,
particular practice, but
yeah, I know.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you're touching onto something again. It comes back to and I'm just going to keep using your title there, the evolvedness and connection and cooperation. Um, that is an example of a rites of passage, a challenge, a shock to the system.
Yeah.
That happens in our society, but it happens in the context of competitiveness,
Yeah.
of winners and losers. See, I love how you just said that, though. That you said that this is an extreme challenge. I would think. I'm like thinking about that. Ooh, I guess when you're older, you think about consequences a lot more than when you're younger. But
That's
I'm
right.
like,
Yeah.
don't bury me in the ground like that. I don't mind challenge, but I'm good on that one. Um, but the thing that you said that's different, I hope the audience caught that, is after that, they loved all over this child. They created challenge. They created an arbitrary challenge, suffering, but also within the context of love, within the context of connection. And I think that there's something to that. And because your narrative, your root narrative, it appears, stresses connection. Like you said from the beginning, we're like a spider on a web, an interconnected web. We're all on expressions of this earth. And with that as your foundational philosophical framework, I suppose, or foundation, it's critical to your narrative. When you do something like challenging someone like that, what you can potentially inspire in that person is very different than challenging them within the context of competition. Completely different outcomes.
Mhm.
Because when you do that in a competition, in the context of competition, so folks, again, competition has a role to play within cooperation. But when competition is an in and of itself, when you do something like that to someone, when someone suffers, be it intentionally or in poverty or violence and a lot of things that we see in the world, they're going to come out of that. I know people who think this way. They're going to come out of that as like, oh, it's a doggy dog world, because that's the narrative. That's the grand narrative that we're in. Okay, I suffered. I had to find my purpose in dominating. I have to dominate, because if I'm not dominating, I'm going to be dominated. This is and the result is a lot of what you're seeing in our world versus what you're saying. I've learned a person could take from that, ideally anyway. I can be resilient. I have a supportive community. How do I take my purpose to contribute to the whole, to contribute to this cooperative, nested whole that I am a part of? Completely different ways, different outcomes can result from those types of experiences. That's why I love. I mean, you said it from the very beginning, and I like how you unpacked it, the evolvedness. You're integrating different aspects of this thing. It's not just creating suffering out of context. It's within a particular context. And I just think that's really important. And I hope the listeners understand that and can see that it's not simple, yet it is. I would arguably say
Yeah. And
it is, but it isn't.
it's a particular history, right? A long history of always connected and always supported. And now you're gonna try this out, and you've seen other people go through this experience, and now it's your turn, and you will survive, and we will help you. But first, you have to go through it. Right?
And contribute to the whole and see what you can do to make to contribute to the community, contribute to the nest that is supporting and holding you. I think if we can extend that out to the global nest, and we are a global community, every challenge that I have, every suffering that I have, can I transform that suffering, transmute that suffering to support the whole? Because I am a part of it. I am my brother's keeper. I am here to. Uh, I'm here to play a role in supporting the betterment of not just myself, but the entire planet, not just humans, non-human animals, plants, everything, because it's all. I dare say it's all ourself. There's different ways of looking at ourselves. I can look at myself within my skin and the little story that I have, or I can look at myself as the whole, outside of my skin. How can I identify with that? And then that's so beyond story. It's incomprehensible to um, the story that I can come up with. And so I can just be in it. I can be in flow with it. And that's that ineffable quality that I think that we have to learn. And I think we can learn if we adopt some of those practices that you're speaking of with this evolvedness. If you're raised in an environment that thinks that way, that holds the container that way, then that people who come through that are more likely to translate that into their actions in the world. So it's just good stuff,
Yeah,
I think.
wonderful. You integrate things so well, Roderick.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I'm just feeding off of you. You're integrated.
Okay, back
Like,
and forth,
I
mirror.
know, right? I don't know. I'm like, I didn't know how this conversation was going to go. I'm just so excited. I have to read your books. I have to. I really want to, because yeah, you're hitting right on. I think personally. And so, audience, I encourage you to check this stuff out because this is it. I think this is such an important piece of the puzzle. Um, a question. I know we're coming to the close here, but I have a question for you. How has all of this influenced your life and how you live well? What does that do? I know this is your research, your life work, and that's just you. But how has it influenced your capacity to live well personally?
Well, decades ago, when I was a student pastor, I developed a class for adults called Moving Toward Wholeness. And that was where we spent time outside, connecting to nature. We wrote in journals about our feelings and experiences, and we played folk song games because I was a music teacher before that. And folk song games I continue to use and taught them to my college students, and then we taught them to kindergartners. And oh, so great. Hunting we will go, hunting we will go. We'll catch a little fox and put him in a box, and then we'll let him go. And then you're touching everybody, you're smiling, you're singing, your vagus nerve is going, your right hemisphere is growing, and it's just so connecting, building social joy together in a structured way, so that you're not, too out there. Uh, and so what I do now, I've been retired for a few years from teaching to do public education, is I sing, try to sing every day, and I have the six directions really, that I will sing to, or at least certainly pray to every day. For guidance, all the spirit, our creativity comes from out there. It's not in our heads, our brains, or whatever. That's crazy. David Bohm, physicist, pointed out that insight intelligence comes from outside. And if we're receptive, which is wisdom traditions all over the world say you have to be receptive to divine energies, and that's where our goodness comes from, right? Our ability to be in the flow, not in our little brain, which David Bohm pointed out. Then you get caught in loops, these cultural loops that we're in right now, and you think, oh, that's the only way there is to be, and not very creative in a healthy way. Anyway, so I try to every day remember that I'm that spider on that web. I have responsibilities. And what is it that I can receive and share?
Hmm. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful, Darsha. You're beautiful. I'm just
Oh,
excited to get to meet you through this medium and just hear your perspective. I'm just very happy that you're out here doing the work that you're doing. I think it's really important. By the way, folks, those little short videos that Darcia has created, they're all on YouTube. You can see them. At least I've seen two of them on YouTube and one on the website. But they're beautiful. And I told Darcia the first time I looked at it, I can't remember which one, but it brought me to tears because Darcia's voice is how do you say it? You're narrating it,
Yes.
and just the imagery. Yeah, you if you look at them, you'll see. For me, at least, it touched something in me. Just seeing how, yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. We can love each other. We can be connected to each other. They're short little films. The one that I think was it, I don't know, it's like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and it's about that. Those it doesn't have to be this way,
Breaking
and
the
just
cycle. Yeah.
yes,
Six
breaking the
minutes.
cycle.
Yeah. And Evolved Nest is 8 minutes, and Reimagining Humanity is 12 minutes.
Awesome.
In 12
Yeah,
minutes.
I know. The evolving that too. Like, look at all the different animals and just looking at history, but not only the words, but the visuals are so important and relevant. So for the experience, this has been great, Darcia. You are an amazing human being. I can see. I am grateful to have gotten to meet you and have this conversation with you. I feel blessed. And I hope we have more. But before we close, I have just one more question. And this can be anything. It does not really a question, any statement, anything you would like to share with the audience. It could be a question, suggestion, whatever you feel. Is there any final words for the audience?
Well, I think in this time of great distress and instability, I find it helpful to realize that I'm part of the Earth community and will always be part of the Earth community. I'm not going anywhere. And so if we fail at this world, the Hopi say this is our fourth world, and we're kind of screwing that one up too. We'll come back in another form, another way, and build another world. So don't give up. Don't worry. Just plant the seeds of flourishing wherever you are. And every moment, try to remember that you are a conveyor of love or fear, right? I mean, which one are you going to pick? Every moment you have a choice of being open and flexible, attuned, or bracing and fearful and withdrawing. So pick the courageous path forward and find other people who will walk the path with you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Darcia. This has been just awesome. And looking forward to many more conversations with you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Broderick. It's been a pleasure. Honored to be with you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.